Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Live Penguin TV. My name's Megan, and I'm going to be talking to you about all things penguin tonight as we watch our little penguins coming out of the water, crossing the beach, and heading up into the dunes this evening. And joining me tonight, I have Heather. Do you want to come say hello, Heather, and tell us what you'll be doing tonight?
Good evening, everyone. Tonight I'll be monitoring the YouTube comments and answering the questions on YouTube, and also giving Megan some questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Heather. So as Heather said, she'll be looking through all the questions on YouTube. So if you have your questions, send those through to her, and she'll be feeding some through to me to answer throughout the night. If you're watching on Facebook, put your questions through on Facebook as well, and we'll be getting our team of rangers to get back to you with answers to all of your questions on Facebook within the next 24 hours. So wherever you're watching from, send us all of your fantastic penguin questions. We love hearing them and trying our best to answer them. And if we don't answer your questions tonight, you can tune in tomorrow, tune in the next night. We're here each night. I think we'll answer your question eventually if you keep watching. So we might move the camera around and see where our penguins are at, because we did have a few early penguins who came up onto the water's edge. So have a bit of a scroll across, and we are looking for little penguins. And I'm not just saying that because they are small. That is the name of their species, and they are the smallest of all 18 species of penguin. So that's what we're here to see tonight. They only grow to be about 1 foot or 33 centimeters tall, and they only weigh about 1 kilo. So they can be a little bit difficult to spot, especially tonight. We do have a bit of sea mist happening, but we'll keep an eye out for them. And they are so small because we are joining you from Phillip Island in Victoria in Australia, and it does get quite warm here, so we have little penguins. They're the only type of penguin you find in Australia because it does get so warm here. So those penguins are little so that they can stay cool when it gets warm. If you want to see a big penguin like an emperor penguin, you'll have to go somewhere like Antarctica where it gets really cold, and penguins have to be really big to stay warm. Now, where our penguins are right now is they're just out here in the water, forming groups that we call rafts. So if you've joined us before, you might know what a raft looked like. They were very easy to see last night, maybe not so much tonight. So we're looking for a bit of a black line or a disturbance on the surface of the water. So I'll zoom in a little bit and we'll see if we can spot that raft. Now, they're called a raft because that's what people think. They kind of look like a little raft sitting on the surface. And that'll be the little penguin heads bobbing on the surface, looking up at the horizon where our camera is, waiting for it to get dark. Because crossing the beach tonight is the most scary part of a penguin's day. We call this a dangerous dash because this is when they're the most vulnerable to predators. So they are quite difficult to see in the water. They have excellent camouflage, and I'm not seeing any right now. They're very well camouflaged at the moment. But as soon as they pop up out of the water to cross this beach, they are a lot easier to see, and they're vulnerable to predators. So big predatory birds, things like sea eagles, Pacific gulls, swamp harriers, might try and make a little penguin into a snack if it's still light out. So these penguins are waiting until it gets dark, when those birds of prey can't see to hunt, and when it will be safest for them to cross the beach. I thought I saw a penguin swimming around here. Maybe one little penguin all by himself. Let's have a look. And they're also forming these groups for safety in numbers. So the more penguins they have in a group, I don't know if that was a penguin, can't see it now, the safer they'll be. So they'll join up with as many friends as possible. Oh, there's a nice little raft there. And it'll be harder for a predator to pick out one of these individual penguins as they're making their way across the beach. So they're swimming in. You can see their little heads popping out of the water as they're surfing that wave onto the beach. And they are quite good little surfers. The waves don't bother them. They're very, very good swimmers. They spend 80% of their life out at sea. It's once they come out of the water onto land that they are They're not so quick and agile, and they're a bit more vulnerable. Now, we are joining you from Phillip Island, which also does have another name. We do call it Millau. Now, that is the name given to Phillip Island by the traditional custodians of Millau, the Bunurong. And the Bunurong have been coming here for thousands of years before European settlement. They would come here in spring and summer to feed on the plentiful food that was here. They would have been the first people seeing our penguins arriving and crossing this beach. And they looked after this land for many, many years, taking only what they needed and living very sustainably. So I would like to acknowledge the Bunurong and their elders, past, present and emerging, as the traditional custodians and the caretakers of the land that we're joining you from tonight. Some of you may be joining us from here on Millau. If you are elsewhere in Australia or around the world, put in the comments where you're joining us from. And if you know, tell us who the traditional custodians of the land that you're on are. It is great to acknowledge them and all the work that they've done to look after our beautiful country here. And these penguins, they're waiting. They don't look like they're feeling super brave just yet, but they are a lot earlier than they were last night. Last night they didn't come in till after 8 o'clock, so it is still a little bit light, but we have a bit more cloud cover, which is making them feel a little bit braver. And we do also have quite a high tide again. Oh, and the seagulls floating down are giving them a bit of a fright. So they are on the lookout for birds of prey, even though those birds of prey should have gone to roost for the night. They are on the lookout for any birds. So a seagull, like this one here, a little silver gull, that won't eat our penguins, but it has given them a bit of a fright because they are wary of any birds flying overhead during this really vulnerable time of day. And we did have a really high tide last night as well, so it does make it quite difficult for our penguin counters. So we do have someone, Ranger Sally tonight, who is watching with her pair of binoculars, waiting for these penguins to come out of the water and cross the beach. And she'll be attempting to count them, and she doesn't have a lot of beach to count them across tonight, so it's going to be quite difficult, but she did a great job of it last night. And Heather, do you know how many penguins we had across the beach last night?
I certainly do, Megan. 2,761 penguins crossed.
Wow.
And they started at 8:02.
8:02, we had 2,761. Fantastic numbers at the moment. And it does change every night, the time they come in, the number of penguins we have, depending on the conditions. So tonight it is a bit darker. Like I said, they're feeling a bit more confident. And we do have a bit of a high tide again. So they're just waiting for a nice big wave to push them up onto the rocks so they can cross the beach. And we do get different numbers each night because each and every penguin doesn't come in each night. We do have about 32,000 penguins here on the Summerlands Peninsula. So we're not going to see 32,000 penguins. They don't all live in this little area down here at the Penguin Prey. Oh, and more seagulls have given them a fright. Oh no. That's going to make it hard for Sally to count. I hope she hadn't already counted that group and she's lost half of them. So we do look after not just the penguin parade here at Phillip Island Nature Parks. We manage that entire penguin colony of about 32,000 little penguins. And we also manage about 20% of Phillip Island, or Millau. So we also have our Koala Conservation Reserve, where we're actually rehabilitating some koalas who were injured in our bushfires last summer. We also have Churchill Island Heritage Farm, the Nobbies Discovery Centre, and a colony of about 20,000 Australian fur seals, lots of reserves, and the entire southern coast of Phillip Island. So when you can come and visit us, or if you are in regional Victoria, you can come visit us and help contribute to the work that we do here. If you're not able to come down just yet, we hope to welcome you back soon. But in the meantime, if you want to help us out here at Phillip Island Nature Parks, you can adopt a penguin or become a penguin pal. You can get one of these cute little stuffed penguins. You don't get to take home a real one, but you can get a little stuffed penguin with a little jumper on to call your own, and you can help us look after our little penguins here on Phillip Island. And they've made it across, so we would have had an official start to our penguin count, and Sally will be counting our penguins for 50 minutes now. So 50, just under an hour she'll be counting these little penguins for. or we've been counting them like that since 1968. So this is one of the longest running bird studies in Australia. So we do keep counting the penguins the same way we counted them back then, a ranger with a pair of binoculars. So Sally does have her work cut out for her tonight. So send Sally all of your love. And we have our penguins hopping into the swimming pool. We'll try and follow these guys as they go across the pool. And we still have our waterfall there as well, not running quite as strongly as it was last night. But it's quite amazing being able to see these penguins swimming on land because you don't usually get to see them swimming so close. Oh, there they go. We might head over to the highway camera. There we go. So there's our penguins coming along our penguin highway. And we do call it the Penguin Highway for good reason. This is the most popular pathway in all of the penguin parade. About 60% of our penguins across our beach come in down here at Penguins Plus. They come up and they walk along this Penguin Highway. And they're in a hurry, these ones tonight. Let's go back over to the beach. And they probably have important places to be because we are in our penguin breeding season, which you'll know very well if you have been watching this every night. Lots of these penguins, they do have eggs or chicks to look after. They might also be going back to visit their breeding partner, renovate their burrows, but most of them at the moment actually have chicks. So we were lucky enough last night to be able to spot a couple of little penguin chicks outside their burrow. So I might head over to the burrows and we'll have a little bit of a look and see if those chicks are out tonight. Let's keep going. Let's have a look. It might be a little bit early for the chicks to be out just yet. Oh, no, I think I can see one or two. Oh, and on our highway camera up in the corner, we also have a shell gritter. So we do have that female penguin who's walking the wrong way along the Penguin Highway. And you'll see her looking down and pecking at the ground, getting those little pieces of shell because she is getting ready to lay some eggs. She's not quite at this chick feeding stage. She's going down to get that extra calcium to help build the shell of her eggs. So she'll lay some eggs very soon. The chicks are a little bit hard to see in the grass there, so I might zoom out and we'll come back to them later. But that shell gritter, she might have actually already raised some chicks because our penguins are having an exceptional breeding season at the moment. So they've started very early and we've actually already have had a few chicks fledge, which means that their parents have raised them, they've been fully grown, got all their adult feathers, nice and fat, and they've headed out to sea. So in one of the study sites that we check 3 times a week, one of our nests, the chicks have fledged and the adults are actually already back in their nest with some new eggs. And it only took them a week from when they kicked their chicks out, said, oh, you're on your own, you can go find your own food, and now they have new eggs. So it's incredible. There must be lots of food out there for them to be having such a quick turnover. And if they raise their second clutch of chicks, so they do have 2 chicks in each clutch, so they might raise another 2, and then if the conditions stay really good as they have been, they might even be able to have a 3rd clutch of chicks, which is amazing. So some of these penguins, they may be going back to sit on eggs and they will share the egg rearing duties with their partner. So they'll come in, they'll swap over every 2, 3, 4 days. They have been swapping over a lot more lately because they aren't going too far to find food. They may be coming back to stay in the burrow with their chicks, and we call that the guard stage. So one parent will stay in the burrow with the teeny tiny chicks because when they hatch, they only weigh about 35 grams. So they're only about the size of your palm. So they're so small, they can't keep themselves warm and they need regular food. So one parent will stay with those chicks until they're about 2 to 4 weeks old. And that's when they get big enough, like these ones over here. We'll go back and we'll see if we can see them a little bit better. And that's when they're big enough to start being left home alone. And when they're left home alone, they do get up to a little bit of mischief, and that's when they'll start coming out of the burrow, like these guys. No, I can't see them. Let's have a bit of a look around the rest of the burrows and see if we can spot any more chicks. Is that one there? Let's have a closer look. It is, you can see a brown fluffy bottom just in the vegetation there. That's a little penguin chick. So they are brown and fluffy, and this one would be probably about 4 weeks old. So just being left home alone by mum and dad, coming out at night, waiting for mum or dad to come and feed it. And these little penguin chicks, they don't know what their mum and dad look like. So they'll just be standing outside their burrow going chip, 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 which means, Mum, Dad, are you there? Are you going to feed me? I'm really, really hungry. But they don't know which adults will feed them. So they run up to every adult that walks past, asking, are you my mum and dad? Do you have some food for me? Until they find their parents. So most penguins will run away. They'll say, no, I'm not your mum or dad. Leave me alone. I have my own chicks to feed. And they won't feed somebody else's chicks. So that's what this little guy's waiting for. We'll see them. There are a couple more penguins over at this burrow. Is that another little chick? Wow, looks like another little fluffy brown chick. Waiting outside the burrow. And that might be mum or dad just above in the top left. Oh, maybe not, it's just walked away. If we're really lucky, we might see mum or dad come back to feed these little guys. And I'm sure a lot of you might know how penguins feed their chicks. They regurgitate their food. So they'll throw that food up straight into the baby's mouth. It might sound a bit gross to us, but the penguin chicks, they love it. And it's a bit of a fishy mush. But you might have heard us say before that the penguins are like little walking fridges. So they can actually change their stomach so they're not digesting that food, so that they bring all of that food back for their chicks. And they can bring back about 1/3 of their body weight, which is a lot when you only weigh about 1 kilo, and feed that to their chicks. We'll zoom out. We might see what's happening back on the beach, see if we've got any more penguins. And while we do that, might see if we have any questions, Heather.
We do. Why is it important to track our penguins, Megan?
Oh, okay. So I did want to talk a bit about penguin tracking with you guys tonight, because Jordan might have mentioned last night that we were going out to put some trackers on some of these penguins. Now, if you watched on Saturday, you would have seen our data analyst Ross talking about how we track penguins, and we use these little devices. I'll hold it up so you can see it. It looks kind of like an eraser, but trust me, this is a little GPS tracker. It tells us where a penguin is, how deep the penguin's diving, and even the temperature of the water. So these little data loggers, we put them on the back of a penguin, like a little backpack. We just attach them to their back. Try not to bother them too much. Make them nice and aerodynamic with these little loggers. And we'll put that on for one trip to see where these penguins are going. And when the penguins are sitting on eggs or when they're guarding their chicks, it's quite easy. We can come in during the day, put the tracker on the penguin, it'll go out in the morning, and then when it comes back, we can collect the logger off the penguin and see where it's been. But when they have older chicks that they're just coming in to feed at night, so when they're what we call post guards, so when they're left home alone unsupervised, like these little guys over there, that's when it's a little bit more difficult to track these penguins, because the parents come in at night and they go straight back out again. Oh, sorry, I've just found out there's a big raft coming in, so we'll zoom over and have a look. That is a big raft. Good luck counting that one, Sally. Wow, look at them all streaming in. So yes, it is a bit harder to track the penguins when they're only coming in at night, feeding their chicks, and they're going straight back out again at the morning. So what we have to do is we have to come out at night after this penguin parade is finished, after the live stream, and we have to find those penguins in the colony and put the trackers on them at night and then come back the next night to wait for them to come back. So last night, myself, Jordan, and our resident penguin expert, Dr. Andre, went out and we put 10 trackers on 10 penguins who had some chicks that they were coming back to feed, which is a record. We thought we might find 3 or 4 of the penguins we were looking for to put little trackers on them, but we found 10 penguins. As many penguins as we needed, that's how many we got. And now I've got to go out again tonight, and hopefully some of those penguins have come back, or they might be gone for a couple of days, and when they come back, we'll be able to get these little trackers off them. I'll be able to plug that into the computer, and we'll be able to see where those penguins have gone. And I think I got a bit off track. Your question was actually, why do we want to track them? So that's how we track them. And why do we do it? Why is it important? Oh, sorry, I'll just go over to the highway camera. Why is it important to know where these little guys go? So they do spend 80% of their life out at sea. They only spend 20% of their time on land. So we do our very best to try and protect them on land. We manage introduced predators. We look after their habitat. But when they're spending 80% of their time out at sea, that's where they are most of the time. And it's really important that we protect their habitat out at sea as much as we protect their habitat here on land. So to do that, we need to know where the penguins are going. We need to know what areas are important to them, where the food is, so that we can protect it. So by tracking the penguins and knowing where they're going, we know which areas we need to protect. We also collect penguin poo, which Jordan has definitely talked about, to see what they're eating, so we can know what areas and what food needs to be looked after to make sure our penguins have lots of food, as they do at the moment, and they can continue to do really well. So that can help us with planning and regulation, so things around like where people can fish, that can affect our penguins. So if we know where the penguins are, where those feeding hotspots are, we might be able to regulate some of the things like fishing in those areas. So if you do want to help look after our little penguins and their food source out at sea, one thing you can actually do is check what fish you're buying. Make sure your fish and your seafood is sustainably sourced and ethically sourced. And if you do buy things like cat food, they often have sardines and anchovies, and they're some of the penguins' favorite food. So if we can avoid overusing some of those resources, we can help look after our little penguins and help keep them as chunky as they are looking at the moment. We have lots of very, very fat penguins walking past our highway camera. And of course, if you don't eat seafood, if you don't have a cat and you want to help protect our penguins, there's many, many things you can do to help look after these little guys. One of them is if you want to adopt a penguin, if you do have a little bit of spare cash lying around and you want to help protect them, you can donate to the Penguin Foundation. That money goes back into our research, our conservation programs, and also our penguin hospital. So we do have a wildlife hospital here at the Penguin Parade, where if we have any injured animals, not just penguins, we can take them to that wildlife hospital and rehabilitate them for release back into the wild. And there's streams of penguins coming past the highway camera now. I might go back and see. There's still lots and lots coming in. See if there's another raft crossing the beach. Did anybody have a go at counting that big raft? I definitely didn't. If you think you know how many came in that big group, you can put it in the comments, have a bit of a guess. But they haven't stopped. They keep going, and we have lots of penguins waiting here on the rocks as well. Having a bit of a rest. Some of them aren't having a rest, they're in a hurry, but a lot of them are just stopping, catching their breath, because it is so scary running across the beach. So they just having a little rest. Some of these penguins have to walk up to 2 kilometres, so they have a long way to go. So they'll have a little break, catch their breath, preen their feathers, make sure they're looking good before they head home, where they might see their partner. They might go back to see their babies. And we'll follow some of these penguins across the creek and see if we can spot any heading over to their chicks. let's see, where are those little guys? Here we are. And we were able to put trackers on so many penguins last night because the parents are coming home so often to feed these little guys, which is great. It means the food is very, very close. So in the breeding season, usually what we want is the food to be maybe about 30 kilometres away. And the penguins can do a trip only 1 or 2 days and come back with plenty of food for their chicks. We'll go over to the other burrow. See if those chicks have anyone coming home to them. And don't worry, if you don't see the parents coming home tonight, they might come home tomorrow night or the next night. And it looks like we have 3 penguins here. So mum or dad might have actually come home to these little guys. Oh, and that is a dirty little penguin chick. Oh, sorry, let me try and focus. So these little guys, they do spend all day, every day inside the burrow. And I'm sure you've heard a little bit about penguin poo. So they do have the highest velocity poo of any animal. I've experienced that poo. A penguin tried to poo on me just last night. And they do poo quite often. So these little chicks stuck in their burrow all day. What they will usually do is poke their bums out the entrance, do that projectile poo, try and keep their burrows nice and clean. But sometimes the chicks haven't learnt their manners just yet. So they do sometimes make a little bit of a mess. It has been quite a bit of rain, so the burrows can get a little bit wet, a little muddy, a little pooey, dare I say. And these little guys look like they've come out of a very, I call them a chicky burrow, because sometimes you'll walk past the penguin burrow and you will just see mud and penguin poo everywhere. It has a very distinct smell. So when you are able to come join us, you'll be able to smell where the chicks are probably before you see them. It's not the nicest smell, but I've kind of started to get used to it. And there was a penguin going past our chicks here. Oh, there's quite a few on their way through the grass. Let's see if any of them are going to head up and feed these little guys, or if these chicks might even come over and ask, are you mum or dad? I'll zoom out a little bit. While we're watching to see what might happen here, do we have another question, Heather?
Let me see. If the burrow gets messy, how do they clean it? Or do they clean it?
Oh, that's a good question. If the burrow gets messy, how do they clean it? Well, penguins aren't much for cleaning the burrow. They do bring in nesting material. So they do bring in grass and sticks to try and make the burrow a little bit nicer, a little bit cozier, a little bit less muddy. But when the chicks get older like this, they do like to dig. So they'll dig around the burrow. They get a little bit bored in there. So they do make a bit of a mess, even with the nesting material. So what the parents will probably do more than cleaning the burrow is they'll try and clean the chicks, which is a bit of a difficult task. They'll preen them, so try and get off some of that filth, but also try to get rid of some of their fluffy feathers, because these guys are at that age now where over the next couple of weeks, they're going to lose these dirty, fluffy feathers, and they're going to get their beautiful blue and white adult feathers. So at only about 8 to 10 weeks old, these little chicks here, who look like they're having a little fight, they will get all of their adult feathers and they'll be ready to head out to sea. And by that stage, they are beautiful and blue and clean and silky smooth, and they're just beautiful. And we've actually had, we were out weighing a few chicks just yesterday, and they're doing very well. They're growing very, very fast. Some of them weighed about 1,300 grams, which is more than their parents, which gives them lots of fat and lots of energy to grow those beautiful blue feathers. And the parent is home, just standing between these 2 chicks, and it must have already fed them. But they are very, very hungry, so they might, they'll probably keep pestering the parent for food, which is what it looks like they're doing right now. So sometimes what the parent might do is it might move just like 5 meters away from the burrow have a little bit of a break. Stop getting pestered. It'll go have a little bit of a rest and might come back, give the chicks a little bit more food, and then it'll go back out to sea again, finding lots of food for these little guys. And I think that when Dr. Andre was here, he said that it takes about 14 kilograms of food to raise one of these chicks to adulthood. So that's a lot of food. These adult penguins have to work very, very hard to raise these little chicks until they're fully grown and ready to head out to sea. And when they do head out, mum and dad don't go out with them. They don't teach them how to find food. They kind of just stop coming back. And then eventually the chicks get the hint that it's time for them to head out and find their own food. And they have to go out. They have to learn how to be a penguin all on their own. So it is very harsh parenting. And these chicks will spend about their whole first year of life out in the ocean, learning how to be a penguin, getting really good at finding food until they're about 2 or 3 years old, when they're old enough to start coming back and breeding on their own. So these guys look like they've been fed. They're all nice and happy and cozy. I might zoom out because we do only have about 5 minutes, or probably less than 5 minutes left now of the stream. So we'll have a bit of a look at what else is going on before we do have to leave you. And it looks like there's a couple more chicks who have come out here. And an adult just in front of them. So let's see. Are you their parent? Are you going to give them some food? And you can see this box actually has a number on it. So this is one of our research burrows. So these little chicks, they will get weighed. These ones will get weighed about once every 2 weeks, so that we can track the chick growth. We know how they're going. We can make sure that they're nice and healthy and that there's lots of food out there for our penguins. Oh, and the chicks look like they're going back into the burrow, so we'll zoom back out again. We'll see what else is happening back over at the beach. And we have lots of penguins going up the hill here as well.
So Megan,
along the highway. Yeah.
Roughly how old do you think those 2 penguins are that we're looking in front of that research box?
Ooh, those ones that we were just looking at, so they're completely brown and fluffy, but they are being left home alone. So they're probably, sorry, I don't know where they've got to now. I'll go up here. They're probably only about 4 weeks old. So 4 weeks is usually when mum and dad will leave them home alone, and it's about 5 or 6 weeks where they start to get their adult feathers. So they're in that kind of in between. And there's another chick outside this burrow here. There's chicks coming out left, right, and centre tonight. So I'll try and focus on him a little bit better. So that, yeah, it doesn't take very long for them to get from that 35 grams, the size of your palm, to this size that we can see here. And they are as big as their parents. And this one actually looks like it started to lose some of its fluffy brown feathers on its flippers. So that one's maybe a little bit older than the ones we were looking at before. So that one's maybe about 5 or 6 weeks. Another couple of weeks, it'll be ready to head out to sea. And oh, here we go. It's going to waddle up to the adults and ask for some food. Oh no, and that one's like, no, I'm not your parent. No food for you. Which may seem a little bit harsh, but these other penguins, they have their own chicks to feed. They have their own places to be. They can't be feeding every chick that runs up to them. And this chick looks pretty well fed. And you might notice that there is only one chick outside this burrow. The other one might be inside, or it may be an only child. So sometimes one egg might not hatch, and we might just have one chick in a burrow, and they get spoiled. They get all the food from their parents. Ooh, is this one the parent? Ooh, the chick's asking for some food. Oh, and it's getting fed. Sorry, let me try and zoom in a little bit. How special is that, guys? Getting to see a chick being fed. I think you might have seen it last night. It's a little bit fuzzy. That's something special. You don't get to see that every night. It's getting a little bit more food. You're definitely an only child. Otherwise, that other chick would be running around saying, where's my food? Where's my food? You can see they're very greedy. It takes a lot of food to raise these guys to be fully grown in only about 8 weeks. They're so funny. And these chicks, as well as going up to any adult penguin that they see, I've seen them go up to other animals as well. So one night I was watching these two little chicks outside their burrow, and a wallaby came past. There was a little pond next to it, and the wallaby came by for a drink, and the chicks looked at the wallaby. They're like, oh, what's that? Do you think that will feed us? And they ran up to the wallaby, and they asked the wallaby for food. And the wallaby gave them a swift little nip on the head and said, no, I'm not your parent. I'm certainly not going to feed you. So I think they learnt their lesson, those little guys. A wallaby's not going to feed them, but they'll try their luck with any penguin that comes past. So it's quite special. Very lucky to see that tonight. Now I'll zoom back out because I think we have run out of time for this evening, but we've seen a lot of penguins and a lot of chicks. So it looks like we're just going to see more and more chicks each night as the breeding season progresses. We might even start to see some of these chicks as they lose their baby feathers and they get ready to head out to sea. So I do want to thank all of you so much for joining us tonight. I hope you've enjoyed getting to see our penguins coming home, crossing the beach, getting to see those little chicks waiting for mum and dad and getting fed. Remember, if you do want to help us do our work here that we do to protect our penguins and our other wildlife and wild places here at Phillip Island, you can donate to the Penguin Foundation. You can adopt a little penguin or become a penguin pal, and you can keep tuning into the live stream each night, learning more and more about our little penguins and how we can help look after them, no matter where we live as well. So thank you everyone so much for joining us tonight. Do you want to come and say goodbye to everyone, Heather?
Shall we do our huck goodbye?
Oh, we can. We can go huck, 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 huck.
Huck, huck. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thanks
Huck,
for
huck.
watching.